What I love about what you're talking about too is, one, I love your frameworks here, and I'm going to dive into this 4-step framework with you because it's very practical, and I think it's very relatable to people in their lives, because we can find one of these 4 things at least that we're not consistently acting upon and
Mhm.
focusing on. But what I love about what you're talking about is, you mentioned, when I have a client come in, you'll talk about their PTSD, you'll talk about what's not going the way that they want it to in their life. But that's just a very small piece, right? That's the story piece of the events that are happening, the way that they feel about it. But you're looking forward at what you do
Mhm.
want. And when you said a lot of people are spending time around the same circles, they're spending time around people who only tell the story. They're not spending time around people who are also saying, okay, well, Joe, what are you going to do from here? Like, what's next for you? And then Joe's probably never been asked that question before. He's like, I don't know. I'm just going to keep repeating the same thing every single day. But what if you didn't have to? What if you could create new input? Because what I'm taking from this is really the simplicity of the idea of just adding new input into
Mm.
the 95% of your thoughts that are the same each day. This is the 5%, right? Moving your body, getting active. That was the first thing that I did 7 years ago when I lost 60 pounds. And once I started
Wow.
focusing on my body and getting into fitness as well, my entire life changed from there. My career changed, my attitude changed. But looking back now and putting this structure into my own life to go over it with everyone again, move your body is number one, right? Number two is the verbal persuasion. I started really reprogramming my mind through the books that I read, but not
Mhm.
just through the books that I read, but it kind of goes hand in hand with number three, because verbal persuasion and vicarious experience of learning from others, that they almost go hand in hand. Because if you're learning from someone who's already doing or exhibiting the emotions that you want, or if you are the person who is repeating that relationship over and over and over, and you're like, why is the fifth person I find the same as the first, second, third, and fourth person? Well, it's because you're not adding in any new verbal persuasion. You're not finding someone who is in a successful relationship and asking them, hey, how do you do this? Ask them for their story, because their beliefs are going to be very different than your beliefs. And that's
Mhm.
what I did. I found a mentor who started feeding me new beliefs. And when I said I couldn't do something, he's like, well, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, actually, I don't know. It's just something I've always said. And then the fourth part was take action, right? Because the learning from someone isn't going to last very long if you're not actually taking what they're giving you and taking action on that. So
Mhm.
really, it's for those listening, like, are you moving your body, right? And who are you spending your time around? Because 2 and 3 really go hand in hand. And are you actually taking what they give you and using it? Or are you somebody who's just reading the books, going to the seminars, networking with people, but not actually doing anything with it? I feel like a lot of people learn all the things, but they never take action on it.
Because they have a belief that's keeping them from actually doing that. There's ultimately three types of beliefs that every single person has, and they can go in the positive direction or the negative direction. There's beliefs about worth. I'm not good enough. I will never be enough. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this. I'm not the type of person who can do this. So, beliefs about our worth. The second is our belief about our lovability.
Mm,
Either I'm not capable of being loved, or I am, but love isn't possible for me. It's not out there. Or the opposite. I'm the most lovable person in the world. And those beliefs are going to determine what we do. The third one is hope or helplessness. So a lot of people have a belief, you know what? Maybe I am good enough. Maybe I can do these things, but it's not going to matter. It's hopeless. There's no point in trying. Or, you know, I can't change. Maybe I am good enough, but it's not capable for me because I'm helpless and I can't do things.
yeah.
And unfortunately, so many of us have beliefs on the negative component of that because of our upbringing, because of our conditioning, because of the messages that we heard or what we saw from the people around us. And the thing is, most of us were never directly told we're not good enough, but it was through the experiences that we went through and how we interpreted it that we convinced ourselves that that's true. And so we think, feel, and behave in patterns that just reinforce that. So we develop these assumptions about the world. We develop these rules about the world and the way we're supposed to be and the way others are supposed to be. And, well, I'm only successful if I do this. So I have to do this, but I'm not good enough to do that. So the world is hopeless.
Wow.
And that's what keeps people stuck. It's all of these layers that they're not actually addressing, which is keeping them stuck, feeling worthless, feeling hopeless, feeling miserable. And so you can have the best mentors ever. They can tell you all of the best things to do. But if you don't believe it's possible for you, if number one, you don't believe it's possible, number two, you don't believe it's possible for you, and number three, you don't believe it's worth it, and if you have these beliefs that are keeping you stuck, you are not going to change.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps us from taking action. So most people, they'll be like, well, I'm okay. I don't feel good enough. If I will feel good enough if I make $1 million, right? So that's their rule. If I have $1 million, then I will be happy. Then I will be good enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay. So then they set this massive goal for themselves, but they don't have the belief to help them to actually get it. So when they don't get it, it only reinforces their belief that they're not good enough. And then they end up in a pit.
Yeah.
Or this is why you'll see people like Kate Spade, for example, who had everything. She had everything. She had money, fame, success, people who loved her, all of these things. But she didn't believe it for herself. She
Mm-hmm.
had a blueprint, and it was a misguided blueprint of the way that her life was supposed to be. And because it didn't look like that, because she probably had unrealistic expectations for herself or unconscious rules and beliefs that she couldn't live up to, she was depressed. And I'm pretty sure she was using substances too and ended up taking her own life. This is what happens with so many people. We're living by this unconscious blueprint, this unconscious assumption that my life has to look this way because of these rules and beliefs that we have about ourselves that are conditioned from everything around us. And that's why so many of us are miserable. People are driving around in like Bugattis and Lamborghinis, but they're in their apartment, like wanting to die
Yeah.
because they thought these things were going to change the way that they feel about themselves. And the reality is, attaining the success wasn't the problem.
Yeah.
The problem wasn't that you didn't have money. The problem was that you didn't believe you were good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can get the success, you can get all of these things, but at the end of the day, you never actually changed your identity. You didn't change the way you saw yourself or you thought about yourself. And that's why people end up being stuck and end up taking their own life or just end up being miserable.